Alright, so the next thing I had to do was to mark the spar locations relative to the first spar. This first spar is going to start up here. We don't have the hinge in here yet, but the hinge is going to be spaced a 1/4 inch off of the end spar here. So I will come out with a 1/4 inch spacer here, put my spar flat up against it, and that's where it will land right here. Nothing else really matters other than that, because the space between the end of the spar and this needs to be about this here needs to be about right at a 1/4 of an inch. So we'll start there. What I did there was I made a mark there, and I came down every foot, and you'll see here I made a mark for the top side of my spars all the way down, and there will be 5 of them. I then took these 2 pieces here and I put them face to face, so inside to inside, and I copied those marks over here. Technically, if my boards are cut square on the other end, they should line up, but this will give me a little extra assurance here that I've got everything lined up correctly. Alright, so the next thing we've got to do is cut the spars. And basically what you want to do is you want to have everything clamped in here so that you've got your space like we talked about before. Clamped in here with that. And then I use a board over here. This pulls everything flush on this side. You want to be, it's real important that that's flush, because that means you have a true measurement of your end piece matched up with the sidewall on both sides. Okay? We got that flush there. Now, the next thing we want to do is we're going to measure that. I measure that out, and we're going to cut these spars. You don't want the spars too short. You don't want the spars too long. If you have to force the spars in there and it makes your gap over here get smaller, then your hatch will rub on the inside. If you have to pull them in so that when you put the screws in, it pulls the sidewall in, then your stuff will rub out here. Okay? So if you have to cut that, I recommend cutting it with a miter saw. That's how I cut mine. You have to sneak up on the mark a little bit just to make it just snug enough. And what I did here is I started with the top spar. And the way I did that was I took and it actually worked out here. This is 3/16 inch material here and a saw blade. So that works out to give me a 1/4 inch gap. I will show you here. That works out to give me a 1/4 inch gap right here off of my spar. Now, your spar is at an angle, and your hatch wall is straight up and down. So you want to take that measurement off of your spar, in other words, of your back spar. So your first hatch spar and your last wall spar want to be parallel to each other. That's important too. You want a 1/4 inch gap right there. That will vary depending on manufacturer, so you want to check that. But for both of the ones I use, I'm using a hinge from TC Teardrops. TC Teardrops. Theirs is that way. The one I got from Frank Bears was that way. So I think it's kind of a standard, but you want to verify that before you go cutting stuff up. So I cut that spar, measured this down to a 32nd if you can. Cut that, and I put that in. Put it in with pocket screws, just like I did the rest of the stuff here. And I made sure it was flush with the top on both sides. And I made sure that on the bottom side that there's a little bit of a gap. You don't want it hitting the wall. So you're actually gonna turn it out this way, just a hair, for that to line up. But that's okay. That'll all match up. Okay, you'll see here our hole for our wires. We actually had to move that hole down. Our hole was right up underneath here. I didn't plan for that very well, but that's no big deal. That'll be covered up most of the time anyways. So just to give you an idea of how we're doing these, and I think I already mentioned this, these are a foot apart, my marks. Yeah, I already mentioned that. And we're going to kind of go down. I'm going to do, there's 5 of these plus the bottom, so I'm going to do the top, the 3rd one, the 5th one. So right now I'm going to show you how to do the 3rd one. We've got our pocket holes here, and basically what we want to do is we want the spar to run as close as we can to a 90-degree angle to this. Now, you can eyeball that. The best way to do that is just to use your finger. If you've got this at a 90-degree angle, you should be flat all the way across this joint right here between your spar and your gusset piece. Okay. If it's torqued a little bit that way, it'll be high on this side. If it's torqued this way, that's over exaggerated there, but it'll be high on this side. So you just want to put it like that, and then put your pocket screws in the bottom. We're using 1-inch pocket screws there. Alright, so you can see here we've got all of the spars in it except the last one. The last one's going to have to be trimmed, and I'll show you that in a minute. But what we did here basically was did the pocket screw holes. We fitted each one of these, and this thing is pretty much ready to go as far as the overall structure of it. You can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got this base to the foot, and then the last one. What we're going to do next is we're going to take this thing down off the trailer. It just lifts out. I've already lifted it out one time as a single piece. But we're going to get it back straight again, and then we're going to take a piece of Luan just temporarily and put it on top of this so that that keeps it from racking sideways and from moving out of square at all. We'll take it off, then I'll measure this angle down here, and we'll put our last spar in there. You can see here, this is the piece that we ripped down on the saw. We ripped off this side of it here to match the curve on the outside so that this will butt up against the end of our floor. This will sit on top of our floor, butt up against the floor, and this will be the outside edge here. I'll show you a picture in a minute of it sitting on the trailer. So I didn't show it because there were a few days in between the last step and this step, but we took that temporary piece of Luan off of the hatch, and then we set the hatch back in place and got everything cleaned up and ready to go. I made sure we had any nails that were sticking out, any of that type of thing, cleaned out, pulled out, and flattened up. I then took a couple of clamps and a couple of boards here, and I took a piece of Luan that was oversized here, so it's running 5 foot across, actually a little bit over 5 foot, and then 4 foot wide. You have to space your Luan based upon where it's going to land, so you have to think about that. Mine was spaced so that it would go up to the top and we would have a little bit overhanging. So we clamped that down, and then I took the nail gun with the 1/4-inch crown staples, and we nailed that in all the way across, working to make sure that we kept the curve true there. That's what it's all about on the whole camper, is making sure that your curves stay flat. You don't want to force anything down in one particular place. You just want to keep the curve nice and easy. We did put glue under this on each one of the spars and also on the sides on the hatch end pieces, so that everything here is glued and screwed. Glued and nailed with the tight bond and then with the crown staples. That's about it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and the subscribe button, as those really help me out. This is the 4th video, and there will be one more, and I will finally be done with the set for the hatch here. I know these have been long and drawn out, but if you're following this process with intent of building the hatch, I hope these really help to have all of the details lined up so that you can see the process all the way through from start to finish. So almost done with these, and then we'll move on to the next step. So that's it for now. It's Brian, dadrambles.com. Thanks for watching.